Anyway, kids, hi. I guess I'm meeting you after like what, 2 months of teaching you online. So before this is like before I teach you anything today, I last stopped putting lectures online. I think around 7 or 8 days before, like the week before, basically. And before that, I taught you. I kind of forgot what I taught you. I taught you. Did I teach you electromagnetic induction? Did I teach you capacitors? तुम लोगों को हिंदी समझ में आएगा तो मैं हिंदी में बोल लूँगा. I don't have a problem, so I can speak both English and Hindi. Not your language, unfortunately, so far. I just came here today. So, see, because this is the first class, more seriously, if you have any questions to ask me, that will be the best place to start. I'll get to know your names later, but if you have any questions so far in physics or from the topics that I taught you, it will be best to start with that. So, कुछ है तो पूछो, वहीं से start करते हैं. If you don't have much, then I'll start teaching you structure of the atom, which is what I wanted to teach you that day, but that class went altogether here and there, and I just gave you a half an hour recording of that class. So if you have any questions at all, please ask. कुछ भी है, like जितना भी अपन ने पढ़ा है, तो फिर उसमें से कुछ भी है तो पूछो. I have no issues answering. कुछ है? मैं कुछ पूछूं? Can we, like, how can we interact? Which chapter did we start with? Did we start with capacitors? Where did we start? We started with AC. Yeah, so I did not teach you electromagnetic induction. We started with AC, and then we did all of wave optics and ray optics, and then we did structure of the atom. Structure of the atom से फिर start करते हैं. तुम लोग अगर कुछ पूछना है तो पूछो, तो structure of the atom से start करते हैं. तुम्हारा JEE अभी फरवरी में होने वाला है ना? So most of your physics thing is over. Like structure of the atom के बाद you have radioactivity, you have X-rays, and then physics is over. So structure of the atom से शुरू करें? ठीक है? If you have questions, please ask. I like being asked questions. That's the best way we can interact. All right. Not accustomed to a chalk and normal board, but still I'll do my best. First of all, you're kind of familiar with this structure of the atom. The center of the atom contains positive charge, and all around the atom you have negative charge. Okay, so this is the model of the atom that everybody accepts. Don't start writing right now. Let's first put things on the board. This is the model of the atom that everyone accepts. So this thing is called as the Rutherford-Bohr model. Okay, so this thing is called as the Rutherford-Bohr model. Okay. So this model was discovered using something that's called as a scattering experiment. We'll get to the experiment in just a minute. For example, you take hydrogen. Okay, so you've done a lot of chemistry. You know that hydrogen has this configuration. So when we write it like this, usually the convention is that we write the atomic number over here, niche, and we write the atomic mass upar. We can actually flip it over depending upon where the application is. For example, if you have lithium, then that's 3Li7, or you can write 3Li7. The point is, lithium, the properties of lithium are defined by this number, which is the atomic number of lithium. That is because all of these, they are valence electrons that define the chemical property of lithium. So before I write everything out, let's start with a little bit of history. When all of these chemists, they were researching with substances, they found out that if you take, for example, oxygen and you take a certain amount of hydrogen, then they both combine in a very specific ratio. Okay, for example, 2H and then 1 of oxygen, 2 moles of hydrogen and 1 mole of oxygen. You have done all of that in chemistry. So they eventually figured out that all of that kind of behavior has to do with valence electrons. So there are negatively charged things in the atom. And then somebody, they came up with an experiment where you heat a metal, the entire thing is enclosed in a vacuum glass tube, and when you heat this thing, certain kind of rays are emitted. Okay, so these rays are called as cathode rays. You might have studied about this when you do structure of the atom in chemistry. So we have cathode rays. Eventually, these cathode rays were proven to be electrons, right? Now, when there are electrons in any substance, the question arises that electrons have some kind of charge, then there has to be the opposite kind of charge as well. Okay, so when you rub a comb on your hair and you put comb next to paper, then bits of paper are attracted, right? So all atom is like basically it's neutral. If I put some paper on the table, it's not going to get attracted, which means that right now there is no electrostatic property. But if I take a comb and I rub it on my hair and then I bring it next to paper bits, then all of those paper bits are going to get attracted, which means that rubbing two things together starts the property of charge. So it took some time for people to understand that actually charges are already there. So it's like negative charge and positive charge, it's there together. So there is no net effect. But if I start rubbing it, then I'm separating negative and positive. So the comb has some amount of positive charge and some things have more amount of negative charge. Question arises, why does something have more electrons and why does something have less electrons? Then there is a property of electronegativity. Some things like more electrons, for example, chlorine likes a lot of electrons, but sodium likes to give away electrons. So sodium is electropositive, chlorine is electronegative. So all of these properties, they have to do with electrons in the atom, and electrons are attracted by the opposite charge, so they have to do with protons in the atom. But overall, if you look at any atom, an atom is basically neutral. Atoms are neutral. So the number of electrons is equal to the number of protons, and it is basically called as your atomic number. Now when you try to measure the mass of an atom, this was initially not possible. When you try to measure the mass of an atom, there is a very big difference. For example, the atomic number of lithium is 3, but the mass is actually 7. So there is a difference of 7 minus 3, there is a difference of 4 units. By this time, people realize that electrons do not have so much amount of mass, protons have a lot of mass. So all the mass of an atom, if it is expressed in the terms of protons, if only protons have mass, then how do you explain this difference? So it is clear that this difference has absolutely no charge. It has nothing to do with charge, because so far we are talking about charge and there is still a difference. So this comes from particles that are basically neutral. So they are neutrons. Rutherford started an experiment. He devised an experiment. He did not have any way of proving where these electrons are, these neutrons are. So he devised an experiment. He took a very thin foil of metal. He took a gold foil. Okay. The reason that he took gold is either he was rich, which is pretty stupid, or gold has a property of being very malleable. Okay. All the jewelry that we wear, first of all, gold is expensive, so it's a nice item to make jewelries out. Otherwise, if you take iron, if you hammer iron a lot, or if you bend a spoon, if you have a bad spoon in your house, you bend it a little bit, it will break. So iron is not that ductile, it's not that malleable. But if you take gold, if you try bending gold, if you're rich enough to have gold and bend it like that, then you will realize that gold is extremely very flexible. So he takes a gold foil, a very thin gold foil, and then he takes helium plus. So don't bother what this is actually an alpha particle. So he takes a source of alpha particles and he fires it towards this metal foil. So to understand what he was trying to prove, at that point of time, when people were asked where all of this mass is, where all of the protons are, so people had the idea that the entire atom is basically like a ball. You have seen all of these smiley balls, right? Yellow colored smiley balls. They have mass uniformly distributed. So people had this idea that all of these atoms, the mass is uniformly distributed all throughout the atom. There is only one problem with that thing. If mass is uniformly distributed, which means that some positive charge is also uniformly distributed. There are negative charges in the atom. From electrostatics, you study that negative charges attract positive charges. So if uniformly all the positive charge is spread and you put some negative charges inside it, the plus and the minus charge is going to attract. So simply by rubbing a comb on your hair, you cannot separate charges. So clearly, positive and negative charges are not there together. So Rutherford, he started this experiment. All around this foil, he put some kind of a strip, some kind of a chemical. If you have studied a little bit of chemistry, there is a coordination compound called as barium platinocyanide. Okay, so I will not teach you chemistry here. But the point is, this is a compound that glows if protons or neutrons hit it. It's a fluorescent compound. Okay. So if you fire all of these alpha particles, he was expecting two things. Either all the alpha particles will bounce back, that's one option, or all the alpha particles will pass through it and they will hit over here. That's the second option. One of two things should happen. But to his surprise, he found that the alpha particles basically hit this foil almost everywhere. Almost everywhere, alpha particles are going to hit that foil. So this property of hitting everywhere is called as scattering. For example, you take some rice grains and you give it to the birds, right? You sprinkle, right? That sprinkling thing is called as scattering. So instead of for example, if my phone is the gold foil, then if I fire if I throw a chalk at the phone, I expect it to come back to me, right? If I miss the phone, then I expect it to go forward. Now if I hit that thing and it goes to that window, what does that mean? Something is wrong, right? So this guy had a different way of explaining this. He said that it is not exactly a very small particle. The center of an atom has both mass as well as charge. So that was Rutherford's idea. He said that an atom is not completely full. All the mass is at the center of the atom. That is true. In addition to that, it has some positive charge. Why positive? Because all these alpha particles are positive. So when it goes straight like that, it can rebound. If it misses it, it should have gone over here. It should have. But because of the repulsive force, it bends. So it comes, and because of the repulsive force, it bends and hits other parts of the foil as well. Okay, so if this thing is positively charged and my chalk is positively charged, when I throw it, in case I miss, even if I miss, there will be a very strong repulsive force. And this thing will spread and it will hit everywhere around in the room. That is why it's called as Rutherford scattering experiment. So it proves that the center of the atom has protons. You must have studied all of this in chemistry. It should be boring to you. And all around the atom, now this is an atom, so all around the atom, there are electrons that are going around the atom in circular paths. These are electrons. The next question is, why is it a circle? It's a circle because if you take any particle and you make it move in a straight line, and you apply some kind of force, you put a positive charge over here. So instead of going straight, this particle is going to get pulled down a little bit. From here it will go straight. Instead of going straight, it will get pulled down a little bit. It will try going straight, it will get pulled down. So overall, this thing is going to go in a circular path. You have studied it in circular motion. If you take a force and you apply the force perpendicular to the velocity, you will end up with a circle. So basically, this is where the chapter begins. An atom is basically, it has three different kinds of particles. All of these three particles are subatomic particles. You get them by breaking an atom. So it has positive particles, protons. Okay, it has negative particles, electrons, and it also has neutral particles, which are neutrons. So the reason for talking about it in such a slow way is that you should be able to explain it to someone else as well. So once you get to college, or if you give some kind of an interview somewhere, normally to get into an engineering college you don't require an interview, but some cases you will. You might have heard about KVPY, right? Yeah, so those things, they have interviews. So they will ask you in depth like what it is and why it is. You should be able to explain to someone why this thing is true. Okay. So do you take notes? Do you do something like that? So if you want, you can write it down. Okay. If you have questions, that's the best way to go on in a class. Otherwise, I can keep talking to you for 2 hours and both of us will be very bored. So if you have questions, that is really very nice. So the first thing today is that an atom is mostly empty space. That's the Rutherford model. An atom is mostly empty space. So the mass of an atom is actually not spread out. An atom is mostly empty space, and all of the mass and positive charge of the atom is concentrated at its center. Okay, and that center is called as the nucleus. That's the first idea. How do we know that electrons are going around in circular orbits? Because of that idea. If you have a proton somewhere over here and an electron is trying to escape, the attractive force will pull it down. See, here the repulsive force, it push it away. But if you have an electron over here and the electron is going like this, it will get attracted. It will start moving in a circle. So electrons, they rotate in circular paths. They cannot escape. So those paths are called as orbits. The rest of it is like this. Don't try to write a long story, but try to explain almost everything. This thing is called as the Rutherford-Bohr model because the experiment was done by Rutherford, and this guy came up with 3 points to explain the model. We'll come to those points right now. तुम लोगों का ये केमिस्ट्री में हो गया होगा ना? पढ़ा होगा ना तुम लोगों ने ये केमिस्ट्री में? बड़े अच्छे से पढ़ा होगा. उसमें स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द एटम होता है. You must have studied about hydrogen lines as well. Lyman and Balmer lines. Same chapter. This thing is applied to X-rays actually. So after this, there's a chapter called as X-rays. So in that we'll apply all of this. Karo? You should be able to explain scattering. Okay, just keep in mind when you're writing notes, you should be able to explain that thing. The observation that everywhere we see sparks. This basically looks like a flash. Okay, so you must have seen fireflies, right? So this looks kind of like small dots of light all around. That is because the center is positive. If it was not positive, I'm saying this again, if it was not positive, there would be no repulsive force. And without a repulsive force, this particle would just go straight and you would only see light over here. There is no reason to see light anywhere else. Either you would see it over here or you would see it over here. Because of the repulsive force, even if a particle gets like, if it misses the nucleus, it is going to get repelled. So if it goes very close, it will go back. If it goes a little bit far away, it will go and hit over there. So all around you are going to see light. And this effect is called as scattering. Okay, so write it down. So we have basically agreed so far, or at least we know now, that an atom is empty, okay? And the center of the atom is positive. So we know two things: center is positive, rest of it is empty, and electrons go around in circles. So this is an electron. Let us say the nucleus of an atom has Z electrons. Okay, so Z is your atomic number and A is your atomic mass. You can write it up or down, that's up to you. So the center is positive, it has Z protons in it. The charge of a proton and the charge of an electron, they add up to 0. The simplest proof of that is that hydrogen, which contains exactly one proton and one electron, is neutral. So because hydrogen is neutral, the charge of a proton and the charge of an electron, they add up to 0. So you can just say charge of proton is minus charge of electron. Basic observation. So proton is positive, electrons are negative. Take a simple observation. So when electrons are going around in circles, first of all, let's write an equation for what I said. This force is the electrostatic force of attraction. So there are Z protons over here. There is one electron over there. So the force of attraction will be K, which is the electrostatic constant. Z, which is the first charge, multiplied by the second charge, Q1, Q2, divided by R square. You know this, nothing new. Okay. Now this thing is rotating in a circle. So what is the acceleration? mv square by r. I'll just write it as m omega square r, because we'll come to something called as angular momentum also. So I've just written simple thing that F is equal to mass into acceleration. So this part is your acceleration, this is your mass, and that's your force. Okay? So ye pehla, like this is what is called as the first postulate. So a postulate is basically something that is true, but we can't explain why it's true. So this case we can explain, the next postulate we cannot. So all of the three things put together, they are just called as postulates. So this one simply says that electrons are rotating in circular orbits because of electrostatic force of attraction. So that's the first one. The next one says, because the electron is rotating, it's going to have angular momentum. Any rotating object has angular momentum. So if I take a chalk and I throw it, it's going to have linear momentum. But if I rotate it, it's going to have angular momentum. So it has angular momentum, and that is equal to nh by 2 pi. Obvious question arises, why? And the answer to that is, I don't know. Nobody knows. Okay? That's the reason that thing is called as a postulate. So L is equal to nh by 2 pi. Now if you know what angular momentum is, it is I times omega. So the plan is to take omega from here, to substitute it over there, and to find out what is the radius of an orbit. So यहाँ से omega लो, omega is equal to nh divided by 2 pi m r square बचा. So just take r square from here, substitute it over here, and you can prove that, and I want you to do this on your own, you can prove that the radius is proportional to n square upon z. करो, give it a try. It's easy, you give it a try. मैं तो इसको derive कर लूँगा, but I showed you what to do. The first thing is, electrons rotate in circular orbits because of electrostatic force of attraction. Second thing is, there is something called as a postulate over here. The angular momentum is a multiple of h by 2 pi. We'll talk about this more, but फिलहाल तुम पहले इतना करो. It simply says angular momentum is a multiple of h by 2 pi. So we simply say n h by 2 pi. Take omega from here, put it over there. So you expect to get R is equal to a lot of constants multiplied by n square by z. See if you get it. Simply take omega from here. I took omega out for you. I rearranged these terms over here. nh by 2 pi mr square. इसको ले जाओ यहाँ पे substitute करो. Rearrange all the other terms. You should end up with this. Okay. Once you're done with this, once we talk about energy, we'll talk about quantization. Done? Okay, you'll get a very crazy kind of a formula, lots of constants in it, but you'll have n square by z. Yes? So when you get that formula, it has a bunch of constants, I don't exactly remember, but you've derived it, so you'll get something like pi m e square. I think you should get h something on the top. You'll get a very huge thing over here, right? You'll get something, I don't exactly remember what you'll get. Some like, a bunch of constants over here. Now the point is, at the time that these things were happening, nobody exactly knew the value of h. H is Planck's constant, but nobody exactly had a proper hold on what is the value of h. So the simplest way to entirely find out everything in this equation is put n is equal to 1. It's not a matter of putting, because you cannot write this equation if you don't know values, and you put z is equal to 1. So if n is equal to 1, z is equal to 1, the radius you get, you can get it experimentally. If n is equal to 1, that means first orbit, because n is basically the orbital quantum number. So n is the first orbit number, and z is your atomic number. So of z is equal to 1, which means hydrogen. So if you put n is equal to 1, z is equal to 1, the radius that you get is the radius of the first orbit of the hydrogen atom. Radius of 1 for hydrogen. So that value over there is called as R0. It represents this constant. It is 0.53 angstroms. Experimentally, it's 0.53 angstroms. And this thing is also called as the Bohr radius. समझ में आया? तो अगर n is equal to 1 रखेंगे and you put z is equal to 1, so n is equal to 1, first orbit, z is equal to 1, atomic number is 1. So that radius is called as the Bohr radius. ठीक है? So that's what it is. Now the next thing. All of these things, the first one is basically from physics, F is equal to ma. The second one is a postulate. The third one is also a claim. If you study physics a little bit more into college, you will see that whenever you accelerate a mass, you require a force. In the same way, if you accelerate charges, I think I taught this to you, electromagnetic waves, if you accelerate a charge, you will end up with electromagnetic waves, right? So if you're producing electromagnetic waves, which means that you're spending energy. And if you're spending energy, then this electron is going to lose all of its energy and it is going to fall inside. That doesn't happen. So the third postulate is that energy is somehow constant. So this is also something that people don't understand. So energy is constant. That is a fact. So when energy is constant, these three things, the first one saying that F is equal to ma, the second one saying that L is equal to nh divided by 2 pi, and the third one saying that energy is constant, together they are called as the three Bohr postulates. All these three are called as the three Bohr postulates. So if energy is constant, total energy is equal to kinetic plus potential energy. So we'll derive this. I'll prove that energy is proportional to z square by n square. We'll prove this thing. इसके पहले एक काम करते हैं. Kinetic energy जो होता है, what is kinetic energy? Half mv square. Perfect. What is potential energy? There are two charges, K, Q1, which is positive, multiplied by Q2, negative, divided by R. Okay. What is the first equation that we wrote today? F is equal to ma. So we wrote F, K, Q1, Q2 divided by R square is equal to mv square by R. Right. So we wrote m omega square R. I have changed it to mv square by R. We just wrote m omega square R. Same thing. So if you cancel the R out from here, what do you get? You get K into ZE into E divided by R is equal to mv square. So mv square is basically 2 times half mv square, kinetic energy. And in this case, there is no plus and there is no minus. So this quantity is basically positive. But this quantity, plus into minus, is actually a negative quantity. So over here, we can write minus u, because this is u, right? K, ZE times E divided by R. So 2K is equal to minus u, which means that K is equal to minus u by 2. This is another important relation. Okay? So अगर हम लोग K is equal to minus u by 2 यहाँ पे substitute करेंगे, you can do this thing later on your own. I want you to solve this thing on your own. Don't write what I have written on the board. So if you put K is equal to minus u by 2, so you'll have minus u by 2 plus u, which is just u by 2. So these things, they are like slightly helpful relations. T is equal to u by 2. Kinetic energy is equal to minus u by 2. So you can combine both of these and say that T is equal to minus K. So all of these relations are kind of useful while solving problems. I wanted to show you that E is proportional to z square by n square. So let's do that. T is equal to u by 2. Let's start with this relation. So the total energy is equal to half the potential energy. Potential energy is K into ZE into E. So this one is negative, this one is positive, divided by R. So one property from here, the total energy is a negative quantity. We'll talk about this in a minute. इसको थोड़ी देर के लिए रख देते हैं. R क्या होता है? You just said R is equal to some constant multiplied by n square by z. So let us say it is some constant, R0, multiplied by n square divided by z. Z goes up. So the total energy is proportional to z times z, z square. There is n square already, by n square, multiplied again by a lot of constants. Right? So all of these constants put together is E0. This value is again minus 13.6 EV. You have done all of this in chemistry. I wanted to prove it and show it to you. ठीक है? समझ में आया? ये लॉजिक किसी को समझा पाओगे तुम? Can you prove why E is proportional to z square by n square? How would you explain it in English without doing so much of maths? I chose the easy approach. I did it with maths and I explained it to you. How would you explain to someone that the total energy is proportional to z square by n square? How would you simply say that? Socho. Just think about saying the mathematical thing in English. Think about that. Imagine that the atom has a positive charge. Again, let's say that my phone is the atom, okay? I mean the nucleus of the atom. So for the same nucleus, for the same positive charge, if I take an electron, there is going to be some attraction, right? So if I make that charge z times more, what will happen to this distance? Attraction will be more, so this distance is going to reduce. So r is inversely proportional to z, r is inversely proportional to z, and potential energy is inversely proportional to r, first of all. Next thing, whenever you are calculating the potential energy of two charges, it depends on that charge, it also depends on this charge, so it depends upon the product of the charges. In that also there is a z, so it is proportional to z of its own. It is also inversely proportional to r, which is 1 by z, so that becomes z square. Automatically r is already proportional to n square, so it is proportional to z square upon n square. तो इतना सब तुम्हें समझ में आया? ठीक है, I almost fully covered the board with what I wrote. So this three things put together, that's called as the three Bohr postulates. ठीक है, तो जो लिखना है लिखो. If you have any questions to ask, you can. You have done all of it in chemistry, so take a look at how much you're writing. You must have gotten all of this from my video, though I don't know how much I was able to communicate all of this. I wanted to teach you this thing. The beauty of these equations is, the one good thing about these equations, I can write it out of the frame, though almost no one in the video will be able to see it. If you want to find out the radius, then you can find out the radius by some known value simply multiplied by n square by z. For example, r0 is 0.53 angstrom, so that is the radius of the first hydrogen orbit. So what if somebody asks me, what is the radius of the third orbit in sodium? So sodium is 11 Na23, all I need to do is take the 11, put it over here. I need to take the 3, put it over here. So I'll get r is equal to 9 by 11 times r0. So if you just multiply 9 numerator and denominator, that's approximately 0.81 times 0.53. So which is approximately 0.4 angstroms. Direct. So you don't need to actually measure. That is what the beauty of all these equations is. You can directly calculate. Now once you calculate using experiments also, these values are found to be correct. So which is why all of these equations are so important. देखो तुम्हें जो भी लिखना है लिखो. If you have something to ask, you can. इसके आगे most of this chapter doesn't deal with the derivations. It deals with some very simple problems. In fact, modern physics, all of the 4 chapters, photoelectric effect, structure of the atom, X-rays, radioactivity, all 4 chapters, you should expect a single question from all 4 of these every year in almost every exam. Whatever exam you give, you will get a single question from all 4 of these chapters, or maybe 2 questions. So that way, chapters are easy. Like there is nothing complicated over here. The derivation might be weird, but बाकी चीज़ काफ़ी आसान है. और मैंने तुम्हें एक बहुत सिंपल एप्लीकेशन करके भी दिखाया. You can directly calculate and find out what the radius is. So radius, energy सब आराम से निकाल सकते हैं. So meanwhile, while you are writing, I'll give you a very small idea of what I think about quantization. The way that I teach it in class, when I normally teach kids about quantization, I ask them to think about milk packets of milk, doodh, है ना? So or anything like water or something, but water we don't buy, we go and buy milk, right? So milk packets you normally get, like, you know, if you buy Amul or something, you'll get a 100 ml milk packet, right? A small crate of it. Or even like, you know, juice or something like that. So you'll get 100 ml, you'll get 250 ml, you'll get 500 ml. If I go and tell the guy, give me 195 ml, it's not possible, right? So quantization means some predefined values are already there. Not only is the value constant, the value is also predefined, which means that we don't get to decide what that value is. Some company decided I'll put 100 ml packets and we'll have 500 ml packets. So that is what we get in the market. If you decide and you have a big company someday, like, you know, and I come to buy packets and you remember this class, you might have a 193 ml juice packet. That would be one thing. But until that thing happens, some predefined values are there, and that is the idea of quantization. So in the hydrogen atom, first orbit 13.6 electron volts, second orbit 3.4, third orbit 1.5, fourth orbit 0.84, fifth orbit 0.53. You'll also need to remember these for your exams. These values we can't decide. They are decided by nature. We have to follow it. The value is a constant. We cannot change that value. That is the idea of quantization. So it's kind of like the steps in a staircase, like, you know, their level is predefined and fixed. You cannot change, you can only follow it. So quantization is like that. Something is constant, also you cannot change that thing. So it is quantized. ठीक है, सबका जितने भी लोग इस रूम में बैठे हो, लाइक डिपेंडिंग अपॉन योर मास, यू विल हैव द सेम पोटेंशियल एनर्जी m into gh. So for all of you, g into h is a constant, right? But this is not quantization. If you decide, you can walk outside into the staircase to a lower level and your potential energy will be lesser. In fact, if this building was slightly differently designed, this floor could be taller and your potential energy would be different. लेकिन एटम के केस में अपन ये चेंज नहीं कर सकते. Wherever in the world you go, the first orbit of the hydrogen atom is 13.6. Whether you like it or whether you don't like it, it's 13.6. ठीक है? So anyway, करो, see, reach that point. Did you guys understand my photoelectric effect class? I did not have much scope to interact with you. Photoelectric effect तुम लोगों को समझ में आया? Did you understand that the energy is h into f? hf करके एक एनर्जी होता है, तुम्हारा चेहरा देख के लगता नहीं कि तुम लोगों को समझ में आया होगा. उसमें I taught you about photons, right? So we'll start doing some problems in this class. Since I started talking, I've just been teaching you theory. So let's try doing some problems and let's try to understand what's happening over here. Some other day if I talk to you, I'll give you some better problems. Let's start with some basics. Take the hydrogen atom, okay? Let's just take hydrogen atom 1h1. The total energy of the first orbital is minus 13.6 electron volts. This value is also called as a Rydberg. Why, we'll see later. This value is also called as a Rydberg. The second one, what is the energy of this one? So you just take the energy of the first one, which is minus 13.6. Then you multiply it with z square. So for hydrogen that value is just 1. So you don't need to multiply with anything, put 1. Divided by n square. So if n is equal to 2, n is equal to 1, 13.6. If n is equal to 2, you divide this value with 4. So you'll get 3.4. If n is equal to 3, you divide this value with the square of 3, which is 9. So you'll get approximately 1.5. If n is equal to 4, you'll get approximately 0.8. So using your knowledge of the photoelectric effect, I taught you hc by lambda is the amount of energy that a photon has. Do you remember that? Hc by lambda? But normally we do not write hc by lambda. What do we write? 1240 by lambda gives you the value in electron volts. 1240 by electron volts gives you the value in nanometers. I want you to do a very simple thing. ठीक है, इतना try करके देखो. Imagine that an electron is going to jump from 1 to 2. Find out the wavelength. करो. It's a very simple thing. Imagine that an electron is jumping from 1 to 2. What is the wavelength of light it will emit? So we'll talk about this some other day. It emits light. Why does it emit light? We'll talk about that. फिलहाल इतना करो कि if an electron is jumping from 1 to 2, how much light will it emit? What wavelength of light will it emit? You people are like, I guess, good enough at science to know that there is something that's called as an electromagnetic spectrum. Somewhere around 400 nanometers, the light looks violet, purple. And somewhere around 800 nanometers, light is red, kind of like rose red. Beyond this is infrared. Somewhere over here is ultraviolet. This part is your visible range. Where does that lie? मेरे को ये जानना है. Try करो, देखो कितना आता है. If an electron is jumping from here to here, what is the energy involved? थोड़ा लॉजिक लगाओ. मान लो इलेक्ट्रॉन के पास E1 एनर्जी है. It is jumping to E2 energy. So this jump is what? E2 minus E1, right? है ना? Plus minus जो भी होगा, E2 minus in E1. I told you about staircase, right? So if you are jumping, you take this is 3.4. You take that is 13.6. So what is this? 10.2? Right? So this jump is 10.2 electron volts. So basically 1240 divided by lambda is 10.2. So what is the value of lambda? 1240 by 10.2. How much is that? It's approximately 118 nanometers. I know this because I've divided it a couple of times. Approximately उतना आएगा. 124 तो आएगा ही. अगर तुम इसको 10 ले लोगे for good health, there you go, 124. थोड़ा उससे कम आएगा, slightly less. Or maybe it will be 120 nanometers. ठीक है? What if it jumps from 1 to infinity? what will happen? What is the energy at infinity? The energy at 1 is 13.6. What is the energy at infinity? Why is it 0? Why is it not infinity? Nice that you answered 0. Why is it 0? Why is it not infinity? कोई तो तुम्हें ये सवाल पूछेगा. I am asking it to you not to look good. The point is somebody is going to ask you this question. Why is it not infinity? Yeah, if you put n is equal to infinity, it will be 0. That is one way to answer it. Or the other way to answer it is U is inversely proportional to R. So if you put R is equal to infinity, the potential energy will just simply become 0. So what is the wavelength of that? एक बार पता करो. तुम लोगों ने अगर ये चीज़ केमिस्ट्री में पढ़ा, you will remember something that's called as a series limit. ये लाइमैन का सीरीज लिमिट तुम लोग कैलकुलेट कर रहे हो. यू आर कैलकुलेटिंग द सीरीज लिमिट. करो, करके देखो कितना आता है. यू विल गेट अप्रॉक्सीमेटली 92, स्लाइटली लेस दैन 100, बिकॉज यू विल डिवाइड 124 with 136. सो व्हेन यू डिवाइड दैट यू विल गेट स्लाइटली लेस, 0.9, 0.95 उस टाइप का कुछ आएगा. So the problems in this chapter, all the problems, they are based on this concept, that when an electron jumps from one orbital to another orbital, all of the energy is absorbed or emitted as a photon. So instead of going to that concept, आज इतने पे ही रहते हैं कि 13.6 z square by n square होता है. You try to understand this and understand everything about it and learn how to calculate the difference. So in the next class, sometime when I talk to you, we'll say why this is a photon and we'll talk about other things. ठीक है. लाइमैन का सीरीज लिमिट कितना आ रहा है? 95 समथिंग आएगा. वेयर डज इट लाई? इन 10th स्टैंडर्ड डिड यू हैव फ्लेम टेस्ट केमिस्ट्री? I'm sorry, when I teach physics, I also add a little bit of other subjects as well. So did you have flame test in 10th? Chemistry, practicals, flame test, wet test, dry test? No. Okay. 12th में है? 12th में dry test, wet test, ammonia ring test, कुछ है क्या? छोड़ो, chemistry में जो भी है. One of the questions that is normally asked, if you try the flame test for sodium is that it gives you a yellow flame. The flame test for calcium is that it gives you a brick red flame. पता है ना, वही तो पूछ रहा हूँ, है ना? तो फिर barium के लिए it gives you an apple green flame. Why is there no flame test for magnesium? First of all, because magnesium doesn't emit any kind of light in the visible range, and when it does, it emits white light. If you burn a magnesium ribbon, it will emit all kinds of light. The answer comes from this one. So that is one of the questions that's asked over there. ठीक है, इसका सीरीज लिमिट निकालो और फिर सीरीज लिमिट 2 के लिए निकालना. You do it for 1 and do it for 2. Just do 2 things. We did 1 to 2 and then we did 1 to infinity. So 1 to 2 you said around 118 nanometers, 120, and 1 to infinity it's around 96, 98 nanometers. So 1 to 2 is the smallest jump. The smallest jump is from 1 to 2. Next one. This is the smallest jump. This is a larger jump. That is an even larger jump. So the larger the jump, more the amount of energy. So if you take a very large jump, the largest amount of energy you can have is 13.6. So that's your smallest wavelength. So large jump, small wavelength. We'll talk all about these ideas some other day. अब तुम same चीज़ 2 के साथ करो. So you go from 2 to 3, 2 to infinity. The Balmer lines were first discovered. After that, the Paschen lines were discovered, and after that, the Lyman lines were discovered. देखो कौन से रेंज में आता है मेरे को बताओ. What do you expect the color to be? I've given you a spectrum over there. Don't be precise, be approximate. $600 something. 3.4 minus 1.5 is 1.9. 2, approximately 2. So if you divide 1240 by 2,
620. If you divide it by 1.9, you'll get 630, 640. So what color is that? It is in the visible range, yes. And the color is approximately green, somewhere in the middle, right? So this is why these lines were first discovered. These lines are visible. The Lyman lines are not visible. So the Balmer lines were first discovered because these lines are visible lines. Okay. So the next thing in this chapter would be, I don't know what time it is, the next thing in this chapter would be to talk about what are lines. Why are there lines, and like what is emission spectrum and what's absorption spectrum. Kya time ho raha hai? 2:15 ho raha hai. So we can talk about lines and we can wind up the class. See, the next thing is, if you have electrons rotating around the nucleus, there is this simple experimental idea that we have. It's basically an experiment that people did and they found out that something like this is true. You take a glass chamber or you take a glass tube, okay, you just take some kind of a glass tube and you fill it with some gas. For example, you fill it with hydrogen. On this side, you put, let's say, white light, or even you can put UV and IR light as well. You can put as much light as you can. On the other side of this, you put a prism, okay, and in front of it, you put a screen. If you have UV, you'll have to put some chemical on the screen. If white light goes through it, I'll talk about white light right now. If white light goes through it, what you expect is, you will get a spectrum over here. Violet bends the most, red doesn't bend so much, so you will get a spectrum over here. Correct? That thing is called as simple prism. If you put hydrogen over here, and you try to take a photo of this thing, and you try to enlarge that photo, somewhere around the green to the violet range, instead of having a smooth spectrum like this one, some wavelengths you will not have any, it will just be black over there. Some of these wavelengths, instead of having light over there, you will have some black lines. Why is that? That's because the electron requires a certain amount of energy to jump from here to here. So it's basically like a staircase, and the electron is over here. So if you give it some amount of energy, the electron will happily jump over there and it will stay over there. So when you are giving the electron all kinds of energy, if it gets the right amount of energy, it will just jump to the next level and it will stop over there. What will happen if you give it a little bit more amount of energy? The electron will jump higher, not get any space, and it will fall back and it will re-emit the energy back to you. Okay, so that's an observation. यहाँ से quantization का idea आता है. So it's like a staircase. So there is one level, there is another level, there is another level above it. So if you have an electron, it can jump from here to here, it will stay over here. But if you give it slightly lesser energy, it will fall back. If you give it slightly more energy, it will again fall back. Just the exact right amount is required. So if you give it that right amount, that wavelength is going to vanish from there. So you will get an absorption line. So if you give it white light, अब तुम ये college में करोगे तो बड़ा मजा आएगा. It's one of the things you will do in engineering college. So you will do like all of this emission and absorption spectrum over there. So you will see that there are black lines. This thing is called as a spectrometer. Okay? So all of those lines, they prove that specific wavelength is absorbed because the electron requires that exact energy to jump up and down. You can use this to tell which element is over here. If I change it to helium, then all of these lines, the wavelengths are going to change. Somewhere else you will get lines. So just by reading all of these lines, you can say what element is over here or what mixture of elements is over here. Okay? So you can use it to detect what elements are there in a gas sample. ठीक है, इसको spectrometry कहते हैं. So my point over here is an atom, it has all of these orbitals. The energy of an orbital is fixed. The difference is also fixed. So if you put light on an atom, the electron is going to jump from one orbital to another orbital, and you can detect that wavelength. तो जैसे absorb हो रहा है, थोड़ी देर बाद अगर तुम इसका light off कर दोगे, तो जितने electrons नीचे वाले orbital से ऊपर गए थे, this process is called as excitation. So all of the electrons that were initially excited will now get de-excited. They'll jump back. So instead of having a smooth spectrum, wherever there were dark lines, now you will have bright lines over there. So this one is called as your emission spectrum. So you have two spectrums. You have an absorption spectrum and you have an emission spectrum. If you add both of them, you'll get the full spectrum. Okay? So all of these lines, the concept comes from there, that the energy and the difference in energy is fixed. Okay? आज के लिए इतना ही. You guys would think, what the hell is wrong with him? He's been talking for so long. So that's it. If you have questions, please ask. You should be ready to solve questions from any book that you're preferring. As far as we had a talk online, at least some of you people said that you follow Cengage. You follow Cengage, right? So that's it. The book you follow is the book I follow.
You can solve questions from Cengage. You can use these concepts to solve questions directly. ठीक है, इसमें से एक चीज़ होता है which is called as the Rydberg formula. तो Rydberg formula भी है, इसके बाद आता है. Okay, let's wind up. Nice talking to you. ठीक है, चलो. Okay, so